Hey guys, welcome back to the AJ Analysis channel where we are finally back with Manchester United match content. The Carabao Cup, not the most extravagant tournament to come back to, but an important match for Manchester United nonetheless. I think it's important that United win a trophy fairly soon. It'd be a great thing for Ten Hag to do, it'd be a great thing for the squad to do. The Carabao Cup does represent a chance to do that, especially after Manchester United beat Burnley 2-0. So today I want to look at how they've done that, some of the tactical things that we saw, some of the things that Ten Hag learned, some of the things that impressed me, perhaps a couple of things that weren't so great. I just want to break it down basically, and talk about the tactics that we saw in this game, how Manchester United beat Burnley, and perhaps a little surprisingly, I actually want to start by talking about things from a defensive point of view, because for me personally, that was maybe the side of the game which interested me a little bit more, because Burnley are not the Burnley that we used to see in the Premier League. They are a team that wants to play on the ball much more, play their way out from the back, play good football, keep possession. And to do this, in possession, they kind of switched to more of a 4-3-3 rather than a 4-2-3-1, with Cullen pushing a little bit higher alongside Brownhill, and Jack Cork playing kind of as a solo pivot in the midfield. And I thought that the way that United pressed this was really interesting, because the Burnley fullbacks were quite high and wide, as we would expect. Martial split the two centre-backs. Fernandes was touch tight on Cork pretty much all the time, almost man-marking him. And then we saw Garnacho and Marcus Rashford both kind of taking up these quite narrow positions. And this was a really good shape from United. It allowed them to match up in other areas. Hang on, this shouldn't be Luke Shaw. What it done was it allowed United to match up in other areas with Wan-Bissaka on Goodmanson, Malacia, not sure, on Benson on this side. And then we've got Ericsson on Cullen here, McTominay on Brownhill here. And basically, despite the fact that Burnley did actually end up having a decent amount of possession in this game, they couldn't really progress the ball forward from here. Now, the one little ball that they did have to get forward was the goalkeeper, Peacock Farrell, kind of chipping it over these narrow Manchester United wingers out to the fullback. Now, the reason that Manchester United pressed in this way is because they know that that is a difficult pass to execute. Very often it will fall short, and then you're in a very dangerous position, and a lot of the time it will be overhit as well and go out for a throw-in. On the occasions that the keeper is able to pick out the pass, it has to be quite a lofted, floated ball to get over the winger, which allows United back into position, back goal side, and then that forced Burnley backwards again, and they kind of had the same issue. So United's defensive shape was really good, stopped Burnley getting forward too much. Like I said, the possession stats will show Burnley had a good amount of the ball, but they kind of struggled to get past this position. So I enjoyed that from United. Now let's look at what they look to do on the ball. Before we continue with the analysis, I want to talk to you guys about JerseyFIFA.com, the home of all of the greatest football kits. Whether that's the latest home shirts, the latest away shirts, tracksuits, or even retro kits, Jersey FIFA has a bit of everything. There really is something for everyone, so if you are interested, then make sure to use the link in the description down below and head to JerseyFIFA.com. So when United were on the ball at the back, Burnley looked to use a reasonably intense press, switching to more of a 4-4-2, at times even a bit of a 4-2-2, with Brownhill pushing up alongside Barnes, and then Goodmanson and Benson just behind. This kind of creates either a 4-4-2 or 4-2-2 shape, depending on the situation, and at times Manchester United did struggle to get out through this, and this was probably my area of concern during the game, United's play out in this area. It started with Dubravka at the back, who had an interesting game, hasn't played much for Manchester United, and probably won't play much for United again after this game. It was very interesting, some of the stuff he was doing. We saw Casemiro at centre-back, who I thought done really well alongside Victor Lindelof. But the problem United had was that Brownhill and Barnes were both playing really narrow in this area. And with United often also going to a 4-3-3, it meant that Burnley stopped Scott McTominay getting on the ball. We know that McTominay isn't a player who is great at creating a passing angle, making himself available as an option, which meant that United struggled for control in the central area of the pitch. And what it meant was that the centre-backs would get the ball here, kind of United are invited to play the ball wide to the fullback, and then this is where Burnley then pressed well and forced United backwards and stopped United progressing the ball. However, there was one area where United were then able to work it, because as United were forced to play the ball back, Burnley seemed to use this at times as a bit of a trigger to then press a little bit higher and really go hunting after the ball. But when Burnley done this, Manchester United dropped Christian Eriksen a little bit deeper, which meant that the Burnley midfielders were invited on to press. But what it's done is that if United could show some quality and some quick two-touch passing, Bruno Fernandes was now kind of free in the midfield. And Bruno Fernandes, if you're the opposition, is not a player you want free in the midfield, because when you can get him on the ball here, between this line, between the midfield and the defence, he's very good. And there were several situations in this game when Manchester United got into this situation. We saw a couple of overhit passes from Bruno Fernandes to Rashford, to Garnacho, sorry. We saw some good passes to Rashford down this side. A bit of a mixed night from Bruno Fernandes. Perhaps a typical Bruno Fernandes night. kind of some sloppy passes here and there, but then some really pinpoint accurate passes. A bit of a mixed performance, which is kind of what we expect. In these areas, I also like the fact that Martial was kind of dropping in to link up, trying to draw one of the centre-backs out, allowing the wingers to get in behind. And this is where United looked at their most dangerous. In a second, we'll look at their more sustained possession shape. In these situations, this is where United look at their most dangerous. It's been the case all season. When they can draw the opposition onto them, play through the press, which is inconsistent to be fair, but then get at that exposed backline, that is where United look at their best at the moment, and it was no different in this game. We of course saw a ridiculously good solo goal from Marcus Rashford. It's a ridiculous goal. This guy on form, for me, I've always said it, is one of the most dangerous players on the planet. Does he have issues and flaws to his game? Absolutely. But the problem is, as a defender, when Marcus Rashford is running at you at full pace, if you go touch tight and really squeeze onto him, he has the footwork to embarrass you. We saw a couple of nutmegs in this game, a little flip-flap. We saw a bit of everything. If you get close to him, he can embarrass you with his footwork. If you sit off, he's got a brilliant strike on him. If you talk to the England players, most of them say he's one of the best strikers of the ball in the world. So, when he's on form and running at you, he is so difficult to defend against, and Burnley kind of had that problem. And that was where United were at the most threatening on the counter-attack, but they did also have some sustained possession as well. As you would expect, in these spells where United had the ball, they had a few different possession shapes. All the top teams do. You can't just use the same shape throughout a match because the opposition adapt to it. So, United used a few different shapes to build possession. One was this 2-3 shape, with the fullbacks playing either side of Scott McTominay. For me, this wasn't the most effective shape because, like I said already, McTominay isn't a player which really makes himself available on the ball. I actually thought United looked a bit better when they shifted to more of a back three. One way being with Malacia dropping in, because what it's done was it drew Benson out of position on the right hand side for Burnley. And with Eriksen then moving inside drawing Cullen, it made Garnacho a free option for Victor Lindelof to find. That was a way that United were able to quickly get the ball forward. Get the ball into Garnacho in these areas. We then saw Malacia making overlapping runs. Sometimes Garnacho was given the room to go at Roberts himself. I quite like that little dynamic. Was Garnacho at his best? Not really. I thought before the game he had an opportunity to really stamp his authority on his team. He didn't really do that. He was decent. Nothing more than that. Nothing less than that really. Just a decent performance from Garnacho, which is to be expected from a young player. They are going to be inconsistent. United at times could also switch to a back three with Eriksen dropping in, Malacia pushing further forward, Eriksen dropping into the defence. On the left-hand side here, McTominay once again playing as the pivot, Wan-Bissaka pushing further forward, Rashford coming inside, and it almost creates a bit of a 3-1-6. Again, it just draws these Burnley players out of position because Benson feels the need to go press Eriksen, which then opens up these pockets of space for Garnacho, Malacia to 2v1 the fullback. And in general, I quite like the rotation patterns of Manchester United. Were they at their best? No. Is this a performance where we really learn a lot about the team? Not particularly. Of course, some of these players are just coming back from the World Cup. They haven't played properly. Some of this squad haven't played in about 6 weeks. Not in a competitive game, so it's a bit of a weird game to kind of judge. In general, I thought United's patterns were quite good, and we saw some moments of real quality. Of course, as I was speaking about that Marcus Rashford goal, just an absolute joke, a joy to watch. But the other goal was not half bad either. Bruno Fernandes kind of got himself in his left pocket of space here. Rashford had drawn Martin inside. Bruno Fernandes gets the ball, clips the ball out wide to this area. Wan-Bissaka's making a run at the back post. Kind of half volley slide tackles it across. Our Wan-Bissaka, it had to be kind of a half volley slide tackle. That's how he does everything. He puts it back across the box, and Eriksen was there to finish. And actually a really nice goal. In terms of Erik ten Hag, he would have really enjoyed it. Because United were patient. They recycled the ball backwards in this sort of area here. I think it was Martial passing the ball backwards. It eventually fell to Bruno Fernandes. Went wide, Wan-Bissaka providing the width, which again is something that Ten Hag will want. And then the cut across, United had presence in the box for Christian Eriksen. So, a really good goal. And overall, I think Ten Hag will be pleased with his team's performance. I thought, considering, like I said, some of these players haven't played competitively for 6 weeks, considering some of these players are coming back from disappointment, really, at the World Cup, it was a mixed starting 11 anyway. Aaron Wan-Bissaka hasn't played much football this season. Players like that, Dubravka in goal, Casemiro out of position. I thought United looked pretty good. They never really got out of second or third gear. United always looked like they had more in the tank if they needed it, but they didn't need it, and at this time of the season, that was a very useful result for Manchester United. And it was kind of job well done. They just kind of made it look reasonably easy. And I think because United made it look easy, some people will say the performance wasn't that great. But I think if we look back over the past 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years even maybe, there haven't been too many performances where Manchester United have made it look easy on a night like this. These are the sort of games where United really seem to kind of trip and stumble their way through the games. That wasn't really the case here. United always felt like they were in control, they looked good on the ball. Casemiro kind of setting the standard from the back, but then players playing well elsewhere. Bruno Fernandes, Christian Eriksen trying to make stuff happen. The wingers looking lively. Martial looking pretty sharp up top as well. Overall, I think it was a good performance from Manchester United. I don't think it's going to set a world alight. I don't think Manchester United fans are going to be absolutely delighted, but I don't think it was ever going to be that sort of game. Burnley are a very good side. They're doing really well in the Championship and under Company. It's good to see them playing a different brand of football, and that's going to take time for them to get there and compete against this sort of team. But yeah, I thought Burnley done well. I thought United done well. For Manchester United, it was job well done. We saw some moments of magic. The fans were entertained. Overall, I don't think you can really ask for much more in a Carabao Cup tie, like 4 days after the World Cup. So for me, I thought it was a pretty good performance, but let me know what you guys think. Did you think it was a good performance? Which players impressed you? Was there anything that concerned you? For me, it was at times playing out from the back was a little bit concerning. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you have enjoyed the video, and as always, I will see you in the next one.